What's the good word, y'all? Welcome to New York Jets Syndicate channel. It's your boy DKB here. So let's talk about the curious case of Zach Wilson, right? There's two different narratives going on right now. One, the franchise actually has a strong belief that with this new coaching staff in place, with Aaron Rodgers being the mentor that Zach Wilson never got his first two seasons in the league, we can actually see a true turnaround, a Geno Smith like career revival at an earlier stage in his career, right? The other narrative is that the New York Jets are trying to boost up as much of a positive image for Zach Wilson as possible to ultimately trade him. And so the question then becomes what happens to the Jets' playoff caliber roster, you'd assume, by the time that Aaron Rodgers officially retires. Now, does that speed up his retirement? Who knows? It's a different situation with Aaron Rodgers being in the building because with the Packers, we've seen this relationship deteriorate for a while. Them not utilizing their day one, day two picks on receiving weapons for him, or even generally offensive line help at the very minimum. Them drafting his replacement early in Jordan Love. And so it makes a lot of sense why you've seen him start to kind of back away from that franchise. With the New York Jets, I would imagine is different to a certain degree, right? Obviously, I think he came with the expectation that we wanted him to develop and nurture Zach Wilson. But if we end up finding a value trade option for him early on, we don't have another guy in this room that you feel comfortable with, right? Tim Boyle would be a no for me. We've already seen him in the league for a couple years now. He would not be the answer by any means. Same thing with Chris Streveler, who's extremely limited. And so, this brings in the question marks into why we didn't probably draft the guy in the later rounds, as a lot of people were, clamoring for Clayton Tune being one of those huge options that a lot of people thought we should have tried to target. So, what happens? That does still give us a window next year, right? But then we also are still in trouble for a quarterback class next year that's supposed to have some generational type talents. And then, of course, a lot of other really good guys as well. We may not even have our first round draft pick. And so now you are going against the grain in that you're hoping you can get a franchise caliber guy with a second round pick or later. You would need to try to find somebody between now and next year, because regardless of the situation, if we do get 2 years out of Aaron Rodgers, you don't leave the next potential franchise guy with any real time to develop and be matured behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers. So if we do decide that we want to trade him, we have to be prepared for that eventual reality. We're hitting the reset button at the most important spot, and the time clock will be ticking to try to get somebody with a suitable skill set in place. And then you also have to hope that that relationship with Aaron Rodgers works as well as what we're seeing with Zach Wilson. On the other hand, if we do decide that we can save him, that means we're keeping him on the roster. We're probably declining his fifth-year option based on what we've seen so far, which means you're upping the time frame of when a potential contract extension will need to be due. And then you also have to go out there and extend him. Aaron Rodgers playing for 2 years means Zach Wilson's contract is going to run out. And then you're in very, very weird territory. I don't think I've recalled this with any other teams in the league necessarily. But for a guy that at least up until this point has been considered, I won't say up until this point, but as of now, would still be considered a strong bust by the league as a whole. What kind of contract do you end up working out with a guy like that? You still believe he can be the key for this franchise, but in terms of real-time games and stuff, he'll probably see very minimal, if any, and probably not even for full games, right? So what do you offer him? The Jordan Love contract extension was kind of interesting, but that's not really much of anything either. Jordan Love has nowhere near the bad reputation that we've seen with Zach Wilson. So maybe you hope you can get him a contract extension on pennies on the dollars, but it is still a huge gamble either way. But just something I was thinking about, especially with the recent news that Aaron Rodgers is thinking maybe he could play 3 or 4 years, depending on if his body holds up. Obviously, this is very early on in a moonlight season for him with the New York Jets, but it's some food for thought. Let me know what your guys' stance on this either way is, though. Would you try to trade Zach Wilson first chance you get? Or do you actually keep him? And are you hoping that you can get a great deal on a second contract extension and you don't have to pay him big money until his actual third contract? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.